Hello, BookTube. Who's up for some mail? The last mail haul of the week. I'm pretty sure that it actually is that. It's a large amount of books. It reminds me of something that I try to psychologically block out from time to time, which is that I get a lot of books in the mail. I get a lot of books in the mail. And my only defense is that I also deal with a lot of books, critically, in writing. A lot more than a lot of other critics in the world do. I deal with a lot of books in writing. So, I'm partially justified in getting all this traffic at the front door. I thought we'll just jump right in here and see. I haven't even looked at the bottom of this. It's one of these plastic mail tubs, just crammed to the top with books. So God knows how long this video will be. You'll just have to deal with a long video from me. But I assume you're going to want some of this? Yes? Yes? Ooh. Oh, Bean, you have to jump. She had a very itchy night last night. She simply could not get comfortable. And she doesn't have fleas. She has no fleas. It's something else. I had a lot of people, when I first got her, I had a lot of miniature schnauzer people tell me that they have notoriously dry skin. And that it does cause them sometimes to be maddeningly itchy. And I got a lot of advice about shampoos that I could use, oils and whatnot. I'm happy to take more advice. If you have a dog that has extremely dry or itchy skin, I would love to hear all about it. Of course, it's not helped by the fact that when it was bitterly cold, 20 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, I, of course, was not going to bathe her. And that is now ending. Her wonderful vacation from BATHs is ending. The weather is getting warm enough now so that this is an old house. It's full of personality, but it's impossible to warm. So I wasn't going to subject her to that during the heart of winter, but that is over. No matter how cold it is, it's cold and windy today, and everything feels cold when you're old, but still, objectively speaking, winter is ending. So we will go back to weekly baths, and that will help, I assume. Maybe that makes it worse. I'll have to look into it. Okay. All right, this is a debut novel. This is a debut novel. I love those. This is by Daniel Nie, N-I-E-H, and it's called Beijing Payback. It is a debut action thriller adventure novel. Let's see here. At its heart, a revenge thriller, but it's not just what you might think. The author has written a book that fills a much-needed space in the Okay. I'm going to hope that the publicist who wrote that did it intentionally as a nod to Yogi Berra. I'm going to hope that's true. Fills a much-needed space, does it? Okay. I'm going to hope that was intentional. I really am. Let's just forge on. So this book fills a much-needed space in the genre. As being a perfectly balanced between gut-kick action and soul-bearing emotion. Think Dawson's Creek, with gangsters, models, break-ins, knife fights, sexy con women, and drunken makeout sessions. The result is a page-turning thriller that feels utterly unique and introduces a bold new voice to the genre, perfectly timed as we head into summer reading season. And who is Daniel Nie when he's at home? Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, he's got cheekbones you could grate cheese on. He's a Chinese-English translator and an internationally represented model. He is an internationally represented model who has written his debut novel. So we will see. We'll see if Beauty has any brains. And this comes out in late July. So we've got a ways to go. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're up here on the bed. Don't you want to be on the floor? So you can grab it at mail? You're going to want to grab at mail, aren't you? See, you got another package here. Look at that. She ran right around to grab the next piece. Wee. Wee. Ooh. Ooh. All right. What have we got next here? Oh, goodness. All right. Okay, this comes out in late August. And it is by the review world darling, Nell Zink. This is Doxology, her latest novel, which opens in late 1980s Lower East Side, New York. Pam, Daniel, and Joe are young, struggling musicians, close friends who are pushing through barely tolerable day jobs as they pursue their true passion for punk music. But as they navigate city life and the vibrant music scene, Pam finds herself unexpectedly pregnant with Daniel's child, upending their lives and ambitions. The two marry, and soon their daughter Flora arrives. Joe, meanwhile, stumbles into musical stardom, producing a solo hit single and finding himself wealthy and famous, surrounded by groupies and scenesters. As the 1990s wane, the three friends share one another's successes, working closely to elevate Joe's superstardom and raise baby Flora. Okay. All right. Well, I've mentioned before many times, one of the things that writers don't get, writers of contemporary American fiction, simply cannot write working characters. I suspect that most of them have never worked themselves. Certainly, I suspect that most of them have never needed to work. And so they don't. I feel certain that these three characters, in the early part of this novel, when they are working at dead-end day jobs, will have all sorts of madcap adventures and 3-hour lunches in Central Park. I see that in contemporary fiction all the time, where the working world of these characters is totally unrecognizable. Even if there aren't 3-hour lunches in Central Park, there'll still be impromptu travel to Florida or Oregon or the West Coast. It costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do that. Most people... Well, anyway... on September 11th, 2001, the city's unfathomable devastation coincides with a shattering personal loss for the trio. In the aftermath, Flora comes of age, navigating a charged political landscape and discovering the love of the natural world. Okay, so it looks like after September 11th, the narrative shifts to Flora's story and away from her. Okay, so this is seems fairly ambitious. It looks like a lot of time will pass in this book. Another thing that contemporary novels tend not to do well. I am not nearly as big a fan of Nell Zink as lots of other people are, but this seems ambitious. So, Doxology is the name of the book. Comes out in August. I'm sure we'll be talking about it again. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. What's that, baby bean? Huh? Oh. Yeah. Oh, you almost had it that time. There you go. Our big walk today. We have a utility walk first thing in the morning before dawn. Usually right at dawn. I think the light level it triggers her to wake up right at dawn when the sunlight is hitting the tops of the hills in the Arboretum, but it has not crested the hill underneath which my house sits. So I can see the first light of day, but I can't feel it yet. It hasn't reached me. We have that, and then we have a mid-morning walk that's a lot longer than that. And then in the middle of the afternoon, now that the weather is returning to habitable levels, now that it's not bitterly cold, we also have in the middle of the afternoon a big walk, one big walk a day. Because this is not an athletic species, or an athletic breed. So she doesn't need more than that, and she doesn't particularly want more than that either. But our big walk today was hilarious because she was so bossy. God, screaming at everybody to stop and pat her, screaming at every dog we met to sit still and stand at attention. It was hilarious. Everybody found it funny. But so what do we got here? All right, this is from the folks at Harvard University Press. This comes out on April 1st, and it is Cold War Democracy. Cold War Democracy, the United States and Japan by Jennifer Miller. A faded, blurry, black and white archival photo on the cover. Jennifer Miller is an assistant professor of history at Dartmouth College, where she teaches courses on American foreign policy and the Cold War. And that's what this is about. A fresh appraisal of Japan's relationship with the United States that reveals how the Cold War shaped Japan and transformed America's understanding of what it takes to establish a post-war democracy. Is American foreign policy a reflection of a desire to promote democracy, or is it motivated by America's economic interests and imperial dreams? Depends on who you ask, I suppose. I think we know what Noam Chomsky would say. Wow, okay. So this is a study of post-war U.S. and Japanese relations. I don't think I've read something like that in quite some time, or if ever. And this comes out in just a couple of weeks. This is right at the beginning of April. Okay, so serious history. All right, let's move on here. What have we got in this? Now that I can see some of this. Oh, we've got plenty of stuff. All right. Yeah, you should probably settle in. So let's see what this next one is. We'll do all. There's no boxes, but there are some cardboard envelopes. So we'll do all the manila envelopes first. Okay, this next one is a slim volume of poetry. Comes out in February, so it's fair game for Poetry Tuesday. It's by Adam Fagan, who is the author of 2 poetry chapbooks, and whose work has appeared in Boston Review, Web Conjunctions, and the Denver Quarterly. And he is the founding editor of Text Sound, an online audio journal of poetry and sound art. I don't know what that means. I'll have to look them up. It's called Furthest Ecology. This is Adam Fagan, Furthest Ecology. And it's published by the Center for Literary Publishing at Colorado State University, the Mountain West Poetry Series. So this is the University Press of Colorado. And it takes up the life and labor of Abbott Thayer, a prickly, irrepressible American painter and naturalist nicknamed the father of camouflage. In 1896, Thayer discovered countershading, also known as Thayer's Law, the theory of animal coloration often credited for laying the groundwork for military camouflage in World War I. This is a collection of poems. Fagan's poetry follows Thayer through pure leafy space, ringing with hypertelic rhythms of the red pole. But this idyllic portrait unravels as Thayer's story proceeds. Grieving the death of his first wife and later cutting a frenzied path through wartime Europe, Thayer encounters darker forces within and without. Wow, so that is unconventional. Okay. Okay. Wow, this looks very strange. Maybe in a good way. I will certainly, it's out already, so it goes to the front of the list. I will certainly give this half an hour of attention. So, okay, what a weird thing. All right, let's move on here. I just recently caught my mailman and gave him the stack of these plastic tubs that has accumulated, and now I've got another one. And who knows when I'll catch another mailman. So, what is this next one? Oh, wow. Okay, all right, this is another one from Harvard. This is by Sarah Seo, and it is Policing the Open Road, How Cars Transformed American Freedom. I read and reviewed another book on the subject. It was called, I think, Killer on the Road. It wasn't about policing, although that came into it. It was about how the highway system facilitated serial killers, or whether it did. I believe my verdict was that the author had not shown any kind of causal link between the two, despite that being the purpose of the book. But the book was still really good. If I remember correctly, it was years and years and years ago, and it was suggested by an editor. Usually editors don't suggest books. I do the suggesting. This one did, and I thought, oh, come on, that's a dud of a book. But I enjoyed it. Gave me a chance to write about serial killers, which I love to do. So what is this? How the rise of the car, a symbol of American personal freedom, inadvertently led to even more intrusive policing, with disastrous consequences for racial equality in our criminal justice system. Wow, okay. The rise of the automobile transformed the relationship between American citizens and their government. In order to deal with the new reality that the automobile imposed on American society, governments at the federal, state, and local levels approved massive increases in the number of people working in law enforcement. Thus, the nature of police work radically changed. Police officers were more likely to find were more likely to deal with people from outside of their home jurisdictions, and the average citizen was much more likely to find himself the object of police scrutiny. The car also forced a radical shift in how courts applied the protections of the Fourth Amendment. Several of the most significant Supreme Court cases of the 20th century hinged on the question of how law enforcement agents should interact with drivers and their motor vehicles. This is fascinating. I'd not thought of any of these things, and I'm immediately seeing that they are true. That first line, the rise of the automobile transformed the relationship between the American citizen and their government, that is incredible. These cases, the ones in dealing with the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, these cases revolutionize how we think about privacy and how we calibrate the proper balance between individual freedom and state power. It shows how the car, the preeminent symbol of freedom and mobility, has also become one of the primary ways in which ordinary persons experience the power of the state. Fascinating. No wonder. Okay, well, I was going to say, it's got blurbs all over the back, and no wonder, because it sounds fascinating. Who are you? Who is Sarah Seo when she's at home? She's an associate professor of law at the University of Iowa. Oh, in Iowa City, Iowa, on the banks of the Iowa River. Oh, wow. Where she teaches criminal procedure and legal history. And she has clerked at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit and on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Okay, so she knows the law really well, and she has also taught it. And she lives she works in Iowa City. Fantastic. Okay. Well, I'm assuming this is out already. Do we have a date on this? I'm assuming this is out already. Oh, no, this is early April. So right in the ballpark of a review. Fantastic. This also goes to the front of the list. It's a touchy subject for me, of course, because I'm sure it'll be covered in this book. In addition to increasing the ordinary citizens' contact with the police cars, have also increased the ordinary policeman's overreach of their own authority in ways that are completely unconstitutional, in many ways that are completely unconstitutional, and that should be challenged. I, of course, don't drive. Never sat behind the wheel of a car in my life. I have no idea what to do. Never will sit behind a wheel of a car. But still, random highway stops for cars are illegal. If you are stopped at such a thing and a cop says, roll down your window, refuse. Or roll it down an inch. And they tell you, please roll down your window all the way. Say, "What? I can hear you just fine, officer. What do you want?" Or don't even say that. Just roll down your window an inch and say, "I am not answering any questions without an attorney present." And the cop says, "Look, this isn't hostile. This is just purely routine. I just want to know," and just repeat, "I'm not answering any questions without an attorney present." And if the cop, in response to that, gets all angry, as some of them will, and says, "Okay, you brought this on yourself. Kindly pull your car over to the side of the road," that also is illegal. So what you ask then is, am I being arrested? Am I under detention? False arrest is a crime, and cops know that. Am I being arrested? And now the cop in that situation knows perfectly well that they have no grounds whatsoever to arrest you. So if they say yes, then they're breaking the law. And if they say no, then you are free to go. There's no middle ground there. This is not a police state. I wonder how much of that will be in here. I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait to read it. What a fascinating set of claims for a book. All right, let's move on. Let's go on to something else here. Oh my God, this is another Harvard book. Is this one even have a puff sheet? Oh yes, it does. Okay. The Bean has given up on the mail. She is pretty tired. We had a very long walk. She's pretty tired. I wasn't expecting her to jump up anyway. So what have we got here? This comes out in April. Oh, this is by a great historian. A historian who has never let me down. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, this is by Anthony Caldelis, and this is Roman Land, Ethnicity and Empire in Byzantium. This guy is the best living popular historian of the Byzantine era. He's incredible. Just incredible. For how deep he digs, and for how much he respects your intelligence. Just, what have we got here? Was there ever such a thing as Byzantium? No, there actually was not. I'm sure that, well, anyway, certainly no emperor ever called himself Byzantine. And while the identities of minorities in the Eastern empires are clear, contemporaries speak of Slavs, Bulgarians, Armenians, Jews, and Muslims, that of the ruling majority remains obscured behind a name made up by later generations. Historical evidence tells us unequivocally that Byzantium's ethnic majority, no less than the ruler of Constantinople, would have identified as Roman. It was an identity so strong in the Eastern Empire that even the conquering Ottomans would eventually adopt it. But Western scholarship has a long tradition of denying the Romanness of Byzantium. In Roman Land, Anthony Caldelis investigates why and argues that it is time for the Romanness of these so-called Byzantines to be taken seriously. Oh, fantastic. Oh, man. All right, I am totally on board. And who is he? I don't think I know anything about this guy, except that he's never written a book I haven't loved. He is the professor and chair of the Department of Classics at Ohio State University. Oh, my God. Ohio State University. And he's the author of many books, including The Christian Parthenon, Hellenism in Byzantium, and The Byzantine Republic. The Byzantine Republic is incredible, but I've read those others. They're really good, too. He's right on the border sometimes with some of his wonkier books. He's right on the border of not really being accessible. As it just, you know, as oh, I might be interested in this, pick it up and read it. He's right on the border sometimes of you needing to know quite a bit about Byzantium and about Byzantine studies in order to really follow the thrilling parts. His books are thrilling. I don't get the impression this will be like that. So wonderful. Okay, all right. We're doing mighty strong for nonfiction here. Let's see if we can't balance that out with some fiction. Okay, all right. Here we go. This is fiction. This comes out, I think, in April. Probably April 2nd. Yes. No, July. Okay. This is by David Gordon, and it is a Joe the Bouncer thriller novel. It's called The Hard Stuff. That's the cover, the weird lighting here. I will try to film during the day so we don't have this Dracula thing going on. Let's see here. Just last summer, Edgar Award-winning author David Gordon published his first crime novel since Mystery Girl to critical acclaim. New York Times dubbed The Bouncer, that was the previous Joe the Bouncer book, an editor's choice. And let's see here. When we left Gordon's protagonist, ex-Black Ops specialist turned strip club bouncer Joe Brody. He had just stopped a terrorist from unleashing a lethal virus on New York City. That stunt earned him the title of sheriff and unanimous respect among New York City's organized crime bosses. Everyone from the Flushing Triads, Uncle Chen, to Little Maria, head of the Dominican mob, calls Joe when they need justice without the criminal justice system. And in this sequel, we meet a below-average Joe, still reeling from the particularly difficult mission, and having lapsed back into the addiction that got him kicked out of the military. Joe has just managed to detox at the clinic of a Chinese herbalist when the mob bosses call. They need Joe to help them rob a group of opioid dealers, of all things. Okay, this comes out in July. These are a hoot. The Bouncer was a hoot. If this is more of the same, then I'm all for it. Just really snappily written modern noir with tons of action. Just if that's your cup of tea, then this is the thing to get. So what is this next one? Oh boy. Okay. All right. This is also July. This is a double, but I'm happy to have a double. This is by Joe Zada, and it is in the valleys of the noble beyond, and the subtitle is In Search of the Sasquatch. This is a Grove Atlantic, a serious publisher. This is a serious book about a man going into the Pacific Northwest looking for a Sasquatch. Often called the Amazon of the North, the Great Bear rainforest stretches for more than 250 miles along the central and northern coast of British Columbia. Having spent much time living and working in the Middle East as a child of Arab parents, the author was especially blown over by the lush landscape compared to the desert. And when it's the largest temperate rainforest in the world, a place populated by the awe-inspiring white Kermode bear or spirit bear, enormous grizzlies, mountain goats, and cougars, and maybe the Sasquatch. Oh, wow. Okay, so this comes out in July. I have been over every inch of Great Bear, and I've been there in all seasons. I've been there in quite far away from any kind of human habitation, and I've roughed out there. So in places where you're not supposed to rough out, where no supervision knew that I was there for days and weeks on end. Never any hint. That whole time, when it was just me and my dogs and we were completely alone, never any hint, day or night, anywhere, in the whole stretch of the place where we were, of a Sasquatch. No noises, no tree knocking, no scat, no footprints. No, I had literally a pack of beagles with me. If any weird-smelling hominid creature had been anywhere around, my boys would have known. Plain and simple. My boys would have known. Unless you are one of those Sasquatch people that says, well, they have mental powers. They can hide themselves. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. It's bad enough that you're proposing an entire species of huge hominids that are undiscovered in the 21st century. That's bad enough. You can't add to that by saying they have teleportation abilities or telepathy or anything like that. One mystery at a time. You're proposing an animal species that lives in this case, British Columbia or in the vast Pacific Northwest. And I've been over every inch of that ground. With people, with other humans, and without them. For long periods of time without them. At night with no fire. in what is supposedly this creature's home territory. And I was there with a pack of animals whose sense of smell is 500,000 times greater than a human's. My boys knew perfectly well when any of the aforementioned cougars were anywhere nearby. When they knew perfectly well when those enormous grizzlies were nearby. They knew perfectly well. It was not possible to surprise them, and there was never any hint. But nevertheless, this is a serious Sasquatch book, and they are very rare. Serious Sasquatch books are very rare, and so I'm gonna pay an elaborate amount of attention. I'm even gonna try in July. I'm gonna try to get some editor of some larger. I will certainly review this for Open Letters, and I would love to interview the author. I would absolutely love to. But I'm also going to try every larger venue editor that I know of to let me write about this. I want it to reach the largest audience possible, just because it's such a fascinating idea. I hope the book is good. I'm tempted to read it right away, but as you can see, I have other things that ought to take priority, even over a Sasquatch book. All right, so that does it for the manila envelopes. So now we'll just do cardboard. We've got some cardboard packages, and then we'll be done. Not that I'm in any particular hurry, mind you. I'm not. So what is this? What is this first one? Okay. All right. What is this? This is paperback release. Paperback release. It's okay. It's going to be a paperback original. $18. $18, but still better than $35. And it comes out in the first week of April. This is by Mine Mizumura. Translated, I assume, from the Japanese. Yes, translated from the Japanese by Juliet Winters Carpenter. And it is Inheritance from Mother. Sedate little trade paperback. This is what it's going to look like when it comes in bookstores. It's not going to be a hardcover. And this is a highly lauded novel. So I assume that this has had a UK publication maybe ahead of time. Or is this, or did this come out as a hardcover? Oh no, it must have. It must have come out as a hardcover because it's loaded with American blurbs. Okay, I just must not be remembering this. Do I remember this? Inheritance from Mother? I don't think I do. But it's got tons of blurbs, so this is in fact a paperback reprint. Still going to be $18. Comes out, in April, and it follows Mitsuki Katsura, a Japanese woman in her mid-50s who works as a French language instructor at a private university in Tokyo. She is forced to simultaneously grapple with her husband's infidelity and the care of her ailing, demanding 80-something mother. The author is one of Japan's most important writers today, and true to her distinct style, Inheritance from Mother is an engrossing novel that weaves a number of literary traditions but remains uniquely modern, particularly in its exploration of issues faced by the baby boomer generation. Okay, all right, well, I'm struggling now to remember if I actually read this, or if I even remember it from last year. I would think that I would, because those two plot lines in Japanese fiction, the infidelity of the husband and an aging relative, are very common. I would think. Well, anyway, I was wrong. It's not a paperback original. It's a paperback reprint of something that I guess came out last year. I'll have to check and see. I'll have to look up on it and see. So let's move on here. What have we got next here? Okay, I think we saw this already. Yes, we saw this already. This, I believe, is a paperback reprint of something. I think we saw this already. You can tell me. This is Casey Archer. It's School for Psychics, Book 2, The Astral Traveler's Daughter. Yeah, this is just the paperback. Okay, so I think we saw this already, unless I'm mistaking it for the first book in the series. I know the first book looked very similar. Book 1 in the School for Psychics series. In that book, Teddy Cannon, a funny, impulsive, scrappy 20-something, discovered she was psychic. She was invited to Whitfield Institute, a faculty hidden off the coast of San Francisco, where students master telepathy and telekinesis, investigative techniques, and SWAT tactics for covert roles in government service. Remember this? Remember the first one. To survive the cutthroat and highly secretive environment, Teddy depends on her group of misfit friends. There's Lucas, a rebel without a cause who can start and manipulate fire. Jillian, a hipster who can mediate communication between animals and humans. And Molly, a hacker who can apprehend the emotional state of another individual. An extremely difficult thing for millennials to do. She's unique in that regard. Okay. All right, well, this comes out in early April. I'm going to have to read up. Again, I'm going to have to read up on it and see if this is just the paperback release of book 2, or was book 1 also a paperback original? And this is... I'll have to look into it and see. I'm not covering myself in glory in these last few books. Let's just keep going. Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. This is the also early April. This is the finished hardcover of a book that I think we saw on this channel once before. The advanced copy. It's by Jared Cohen. The advanced copy was called Accidental Presidents, all about biographical sketches of the men in American history who have become president without intending to be. In the finished copy, that appears to have been changed to review copy, not for resale. Same cover design, though. And there you have the eyes of all of the men. Look at that. Some looking sinister, some not. And this is the first book to chronicle the presidencies of the 8 men who took office after the president's death. John Tyler, Millard Fillmore, Andrew Johnson, Chester Arthur, Theodore Roosevelt, Calvin Coolidge, Harry Truman, and Lyndon Johnson. I love U.S. presidential books. Absolutely love them. And I had the advanced copy of this thing, and I even meant to read it. I read a chunk of it, and then I got distracted. So I will gladly reread this. Gladly. The parts I read were wonderful. This book is the story of how these men, who were neither the voters nor their party's choice, rose to power and confronted the challenges and contours of their times. With the near-constant talk of impeachment swirling around President Trump, the topic of presidential succession is a timely one. However, Cohen began researching and writing this book when Barack Obama was in office, before Donald Trump emerged as a viable candidate for 2016. The author is the founder and CEO of Jigsaw at Alphabet Inc., the parent company of Google and its subsidiaries. Previously, he served as chief advisor to Google's executive chairman Eric Schmidt, with whom he co-authored the New York Times bestseller The New Digital Age. And from 2006 to 2010, he served as a member of the Secretary of State's policy planning staff and as a close advisor to Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton. Where does he find time to write? His career has taken him from the front lines of policy to the cutting edge of technology, and his lifelong fascination with presidential history brought him to the unique and critical topic of investigating the 8 times in history when the country was changed at the hands of leaders who were never meant to be leaders at all. Fascinating. Fascinating. That's just great. Yes, the impeachment talk does swirl around Donald Trump, but Donald Trump will not be impeached. And he will also not leave office early, and he will also not lose in 2020. So, all the people who cannot stand the fact that this just human boil is president of the United States, I'm one of those people, are just going to have to live with that. They're just going to have to deal with that fact. If they didn't want that to be true, they should have watched for how much of the mechanisms of the country that could have prevented it were being dismantled and packed away in IKEA boxes by the Republican minority when Barack Obama was president. If they'd been paying attention to that, it might not have happened. But one way or another, this is fantastic. This goes right to the head of the list. So this is the first week in April. As usual, as you've seen on this channel many, many times, I do not, just on aesthetic grounds, agree with changing the title to Review Copy Not for Resale. But once again, I assume that is the title of the book because it's by far the most prominent thing on the cover. I can't think of any reason why it would be there otherwise. Why would a publisher put that there if that weren't the title of the book? It's not possible that the goal could be to reprimand people who are thinking of reviewing this book and thereby amplifying its audience enormously at totally free. The publisher doesn't have to pay them to do that. That's not the type of person that you would want to reprimand, right? No. So, of course, that has to be the title of the book. There isn't any other explanation. What kind of a publisher would consider it a perfectly good business model to put that on there and reprimand the people who are trying to do you a favor? Nobody would think that way. So, but anyway, we have 2 more packages to go, and then we'll be done. All my mail hauls are long. All my videos are long. Just long-winded, you know what. But let's see what this next one is. This is on a Book Olive's channel. This would be called the penultimate book. She never misses an opportunity to use that word. I love it. She's the only person who sounds natural saying it in the whole world now that William F. Buckley is dead. Well, let's see. Let's see what we have here. Okay. This is from FSG. This is probably April 2nd. Yeah, it is April 2nd. And this is by Sarah Knott, and it is Mother is a Verb, an Unconventional History. Mother is a Verb. Whole front page of the pub sheet is ecstatic blurbs. Okay, whole back sheet of the pub sheet is ecstatic blurbs. The pub sheet does not tell me anything about the book, which is its purpose. Let's see. Welcome to a work of history unlike any other. Mothering is as old as human existence. But how has this most essential experience changed over time and cultures? What is the history of maternity? The history of pregnancy, birth, the encounter with an infant? Can one capture the historical trail of mothers? And how? In Mother is a Verb, historian Sarah Knott creates a genre all her own in order to craft a new kind of historical interpretation. Blending memoir and history and building from anecdote, her book brings the past and present viscerally alive. It is at once intimate and expansive, lyrical and precise. Okay, so this is a sweeping historical overview of what motherhood has been in different periods in history. That's fascinating. I don't think I've read this. I will be. I admit I will be a little surprised if this does not pursue an ideological agenda. I'd be a little surprised if there are any heartless mothers in here, any callous mothers in here, even though we know from historical records that most of the time mothers who had any kind of disposable income wanted nothing to do with raising their children. It was considered bad form. In many societies that we know of, including relatively modern societies, it was considered bad form. You saw the children, you birthed the children, you saw them, you knew them, but their raising and care and education was entirely done by other people. And you would have been a subject of invidious mockery and behind-the-scenes scorn if it had been done by you. In many, many cultures. So I'm curious to see. I'll be curious to know whether or not this is done with ideological glasses. But anyway, now we are finally at the last book in this last mail haul of the week. So we'll see what this one is, and then I have a mountain of stuff to clean up, but I won't drag you through that. What is this last one? Also from FSG, probably also April 2nd. April 2nd. Yep, that's 200 books that I have myself that are coming out in April 2nd. On that day. I'm not going to pay much attention to it, but still. It's March 5th all over again. And this is the finished copy of The Light Years, a memoir by Chris Rush, who is an award-winning artist and designer whose work is held in various museum collections. This is his first book. And this is a memoir, very nicely designed, of what... of an author who has drawn comparisons to Cheryl Strayed, Augustine Burroughs, and a very dark David Sedaris. It's the summer of love, and the Rush household is a picture of New Jersey suburban normalcy. Chris is the shy, queer, middle child in a boisterous Catholic family of 7. His world is turned upside down when his adventurous older sister Donna introduces him to Valentine, a charismatic friend orbited by a circle of exotic followers and hangers-on. Chris is 12 years old when Valentine places the first tab of LSD on his tongue. Remember this? I remember this now. We got the advanced copy of this. This is right around the corner, and I haven't read it, so I need to get to it. There's quite a few things in this mail haul that I need to get to. This is all April 2nd, with a couple of tiny exceptions. So let's do a massive Steve pyramid, shall we? We had everything in this mail haul. We had memoirs, we had history, serious history, and semi-serious history. We had Sasquatch, we had debut fiction, poetry. So we have The Light Years by Chris Rush, a memoir. We have Mother is a Verb by Sarah Knott, new history of what motherhood has been like in various historical epics. We have Roman Land by Anthony Caldelas, a fantastic historian. You really need to make his acquaintance, especially if you're interested in the Eastern Empire. Then Policing the Open Road. Sounds fascinating. A study of what the open highways and a car in every garage has done to the ordinary person's relationship with the police. Oh, fantastic. Then Cold War democracy. A systematic study of U.S.-Japanese relations in the Cold War. Ordinarily overshadowed by U.S.-Russian relations, of course. Then by Jared Cohen, review copy not for resale, about the men in American presidential history who became president without planning to, unless you believe that LBJ did plan it. That's a video for another time. Then The Astral Traveler's Daughter, School for Psychics. We have In the Valleys of the Noble Beyond, a serious book about one person's search for Sasquatch. Glad to see it. Very glad to see it. Wondering what kind of review copy, what kind of review coverage it will get. Then Doxology by Nell Zink, her latest novel coming out this summer. Sounds very ambitious. Takes place over time, deals with real-world issues. I'm perfectly willing to get on the Nell Zink train if this book works for me. Beijing Payback by an internationally represented male model. Let's see here. The Hard Stuff by David Gordon. The latest Joe the Bouncer novel. Those of you who are interested in that kind of down-on-your-luck underdog action thriller series, get in on the ground floor of Joe the Bouncer novels. Get the first one, The Bouncer, at your library and see if you like it. I bet you will. This author has a real ear for action, for snappy dialogue. I bet you'll like them. Then a weird-seeming slim volume of poetry, Furthest Ecology by Adam Fagan, which I can get to right away because it's a February release. And lastly, this thing, Inheritance from Mother, which I'm thinking is a paperback release of a hardcover from last year, but I'll have to double check and make sure. So that is a fairly good last mail haul of the week. And that's just going to have to settle us because we're not going to get any mail on Sunday. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I've gone way too long. I will see you soon in sunlight. Thank you, BookTube.